Guest tonight is Abe Gurko, and does he have a family story? It all goes back to his uncle who was in the concentration camps in Germany, who wrote a song. Here's a little clip about what's going on.
Won't be silent, not for one more day. We'll speak out so future generations will be saved. Won't close our eyes and fear it hide. We'll let our beauty reign. Nothing stands between us and the world we dream to know.
When I first heard the song, it was the harrowing quality of the melody. It was just, emotionally, it hit me as this bittersweet moment.
I just think that there's angels on earth, and I think they're all showing up for this one moment.
I think this whole thing is a collaborative effort. I think it started with you finding out about your uncle, unearthing the song, bringing it to someone like me to interpret it. The best thing we can do with the song is put it out there for others to interpret and to listen to the words and speak about how that makes them feel.
Let our beauty reign. Nothing stands between us and the world we dream to know. We were made to love no matter how much hate we face. We will fight for those who cannot fight and need us.
No guardaremos el silencio ni un día más. Levantaremos nuestras voces sin temor para abrir camino y elevar nuestra humanidad. Unidos lograremos que en el mundo haya paz.
That moment when he wrote the melody, he was not a prisoner.
This little piece of music that has such a history and that was nearly forgotten and now has such a resonance.
We want people in this current moment of resistance to use their voices.
Wow. Abe, come on in.
Hello.
Hello there, Abe. My goodness, what a story.
Yeah.
When did you first hear about this or start finding out about this?
So, coincidentally, when the Nazis were marching in Charlottesville back in, what was it, August 2017, shortly thereafter, the Holocaust Museum sent our family an email saying, we found this piece of music. It was in some book that a survivor of the same camp that my uncle was killed in had just kind of remembered it and was like, noticed it. And so they attributed it to him. And it was this kind of, you know, a wake-up moment for me to want to give. Just until then, my uncle was just one of the 6 million anonymous Jews. I mean, and it was an opportunity to give him a name and a face. And even somehow, if I could take this little piece of music, it was just a fragment that was remembered, and to kind of give it life and give it wings and So from the ashes of the Holocaust comes this message of hope, pretty much. And I wanted, as an activist, I felt, so the song was originally written in the camp as, it was kind of like a hymn that, stay silent, don't let them take your tears, keep your dignity.
What's the philosophy of that? Tell me about that.
It's just the philosophy of, like, once they were imprisoned in a camp, there was no way to really resist. So the only resistance they had left was to keep their dignity and not, as the way the original lyrics said, like, don't let them take your tears, and, keep strong and stay silent, and, keep yourself. That was really all that was left. They can't stop us from crying silently, which is like so like heavy. And I, who wanted to give him more of a message of, resistance, which that is a form of resistance. And I contacted this woman, Carrie Fisher, who I had known and I'd worked on a project with. And I just sent her like just a few chords, and we turned it into this message of won't be silent. So it's been very empowering. It was, up until COVID, I would film all those different segments you see were, recording sessions and moments and videos and meeting people on this journey. I mean, the real lead in this whole story is the piece of music. I'm just kind of like journeying with it and trying to bring it along so that we can leave it behind in the best possible form it needs to be left behind. And it's still in process. COVID shut me down, and I lost, the traction and the energy and the funding, and, but it was great things were happening. And now I'm picking up the pieces. There's a lot of exciting things that are brewing with it that can take it to the next level where it continues to soar, but, knock wood. But the amazing thing for me personally in this journey, even when we were in lockdown, where I found TikTok, and I felt, well, what better way to say I won't be silent than by voting? So I got very involved in my following, which is really committed to keeping democracy alive in this country, because, my parents survived the Holocaust, and as a child of Holocaust survivors, just the idea that, white supremacists are like trickling in. They're not even trickling in anymore. They're in fucking power, and I won't live in a country of that, so I'm ready to go. I'm as fired up about what I see in terms of, I hear, when you think about America's late coming into World War II and being passive, I get it. They didn't want to go overseas and whatever. Like, we're right here, kiddies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it's, this whole idea of won't be silent is like, I'm not new to this. I started when I was in 7th grade, when the moratorium to end the war in Vietnam, remember that? We were in grade school.
Yes, we were.
And my sister was in college, and she was like on the steps of the Washington Monument. And I was like stopping all my 7th grade class. I'm like, we're not going in, we got to fight. And, so I've been very connected to protest and speaking up anyway with gay rights in New York City was, I remember my first march down 5th Avenue. It was like such a moment of knowing that, I earned this space. I'm here because I have, not only because I'm queer, get used to it, but I'm here because I have, and I'm important like everybody else. It was very fulfilling. And even the women's movement, when it was back in the, I always used to say, girl, if I needed a bra, I would have burned one. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's just like, what are you doing in life? I mean, to me, I wanted to do something. Hey, so let me just circle back to one other thing. So because I was raised by Holocaust survivors, I was very assimilated. I was there's a lot of emotional baggage that comes with that. So I kind of decided to divorce myself from it and became very disco, you know what I mean? You know, become very as like the best possible un-Jewishing of any way I could. So that when this whole thing happened, I was like, you know, and what was my life really? I mean, I was just an ex-drug addict, you know, producing Maybelline commercials. I mean, where was the value in life, you know? Like, what shade of lipstick are we doing now for this setup, you know? So, not that applying lipstick doesn't feel fabulous, don't get me wrong.
So, Abe, how much did you know about your uncle before you were sent that book?
So, you know, the thing is very little, you know, the very few things, and I've been on a journey to find out more about him, but we, you know, what we knew, my mother always would start crying if she even thought about him. So we just know not to bring it up. But we had the picture that there's that picture of him in the video that was hanging in the dining room. And it was always like an honoring him and all day long. But we just knew that he had been the youngest conductor of the symphony orchestra at age 27, and that he when the thing that was so intense is that when they were sent to the ghettos to smuggle in all the parts of the instruments, including a piano, and having like an orchestra, and then I've come to find out that, you know, they created a very full cultural life in the ghetto. He started a children's music school and a 100-voice choir, and there was theater. And I've seen images of theater productions that, like, you can't even believe that they were being under the threat of guards all day, and, you know, scrounging for whatever bits of food. I mean, you know, the conditions in the ghettos were horrible. It was like 30 people to one bedroom apartment, you know. And yeah, so, you know, just to find out. And then I found this book, coincidentally have it here, by the way, and it's called The Last Days of Jerusalem, the Last Days of the Jerusalem in Lithuania. In Vilna, where he was from, was like the cultural mecca for Eastern Europe. And that book, this thick book, is a diary of someone that was friends with my uncle, who kept a daily diary of the war from 1939 till the day he was killed with my uncle. And he would bury the pages all the time. And he would tell one person, if you live, this is where the pages are. And years later, all the pages came together. And it's just like, there's just so many amazing stories of like writing music till your last days. I mean, just in the most dark places on earth, to find music as your way of kind of living life. I always say it's like living life a day at a time on life's terms, you know. And it's not only in the Jewish community. I mean, if you look at slavery and you think that, you know, all the spirituals, that was like their way of being able to connect to a higher power through music, in spite of the horrible conditions of slavery. And then you also can look at, you know, inner city poverty, where you have, you know, in Compton, California, where, you know, rap came out of these poor slums of California, and also in Atlanta, and even, you know, look, Detroit before Motown was like slums and poor poverty. And it's like taking yourself up like spiritually. So, you know, the whole idea of staying silent is a spiritual strength that you find to resist whatever is around you. And I just find that so encouraging, and so, like, thank God it's in my DNA, you know, because
How did the song spread like it did? You know, you had the Spanish version, you had the choral piece over in Europe. How did that come about?
I'm telling you, this whole thing has been one of these gifts of the miracle of where this thing came from. And so the first thing was, when I first found the music, I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And I go, let me call Kara. I hadn't spoken to her in years.
Now,
And
how did you meet Kara? Tell us the backstory on Kara.
Kara, when I used to book front row at New York City Fashion Week, she was on American Idol. She was one of the judges at the time.
Oh,
And I was in LA on a business trip, and we were all at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and we started drinking and talking, whatever. And I said, hey, you should come to New York for the whatever. So, she came, we flew her in, we put her front row, dressed her, whatever. It was fun. But we always stayed in touch. And then she was in New York doing Chicago, and we reconnected because she lives in Maine. And so we just kind of stayed in touch casually, and then just hello, you want to look at this? And she rewrote the lyrics to Won't Be Silent, which lyrics are amazing. So it's like, we won't be silent, not for one more day. We'll speak out so future generations will be saved. Won't close our eyes in fear and hide. We'll let our beauty reign. Nothing stands between us in a world we dream to know. And if you think about those lyrics in that dark space, it's almost dreamlike. It's just lovely, and it's been a joy. So we had new lyrics, you know what I mean? And I was like, who should I get to do this? And there was something about the process for me, and I've kind of been in and out of the business for years, but I was out of it at the time, and literally, and I didn't want it to just be like, oh, a pop sensation doing this song.
right.
So when I was introduced to the women that you see, the first women who sang that song, the Resistance Revival Chorus, I was like, oh my God, that would be so amazing because it's diverse, it's multicultural, it's women who met at the Women's March after the Trump, and that was intense because that was what America started going on, that downward spiral, and the need for this kind of message became so relevant. So, coincidentally, one person told the other one, and I contacted them and I said, would you like to do this? And, I got the money together to rent the studio and whatever and get hair and makeup because it's so important. So it was like, that was the beginning of understanding that is a beautiful way to see this piece of music. Then they started putting the kids in the cages in the Texas. And I was like, but the media was using the expression concentration camps. Oh, they're putting the kids in concentration. And you know what? For someone whose mother survived Dachau, fuck you, they were in concentration camps, So I got really annoyed, and I was like, I wanted to tell this song in Spanish. So I'm like literally in a spinning class here in California. And once it was on the news that they were putting the kids in the things, and I was like, just to some random stranger next to me, I'm like, I am going to kill somebody. What are they talking about? So I said, I want to do this project. I'm doing this project. I want to do it in Spanish. She's like, oh, here, you should call my friend who was this adorable pop singer in Mexico City, who's not only gay and Jewish and an immigrant, but also, I was like,
Check.
oh, you know what I mean? It was like, and he was adorable and so good, and his interpretation was just so simple.
Oh, I've watched that 3 or 4 times, and when that comes on, I don't understand the words, but it just, what it's saying. It's
yeah, it's really amazing.
so
and
Abe, go
let
ahead.
me just final thing.
Yeah.
The Germany thing was like, I was in Munich a few years ago when that first happened, and I just was sitting at dinner. I was saying, this thing, and my uncle, blah blah blah, and I'm just like, I'm doing this. And he was the conductor of the Bavarian Symphony Orchestra. And I went back to America, and then he randomly 6 months later, he goes, book a trip to Germany on March 17th. Be here on March 17th. And he did that whole thing where he extended the music. He hired a young conductor to make it into a whole interlude. And it was like at this most amazing theater, and hundreds of first and second generation of Nazi survivors, were coming up to me apologizing. It was really incredible. So I'm just into having as many different people interpret it, all genres, all languages, and that's the journey that'll take me out. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm on earth, to just kind of see this as far as it can go, and ultimately create an annual event where young people come together, and not only my uncle's song, but songs of protest and whatever. I mean, just you know, the music industry is kind of shies away from protest music because they don't want to alienate, you know, chapters of, you know, groups of people to buy it. But like, I'm not, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm an event producer, so I could see doing this down the road. So
Your uncle has a fascinating story. Is there a movie there?
there's gonna be, but it's still we're filming. We still need, I feel like since post-COVID and the way the evolution of our culture is going with the whole thing about white supremacy being just so in your face, I feel like my goal is to bring people of color and Jewish people together to fight the inevitable fight that's on our horizon. So I want to add a layer of really speaking to the different cultures of music. So it's not going to only be about my uncle's song, and maybe that's going to be the miracle of this project. This thing spins as it goes, and I'm just kind of, you know, I'm ushering this piece of music along the planet. So that's where I'm at with that.
Well, Abe, thank you so much for talking with us tonight. Fascinating story, and we'll be following it. And I know people are going to be downloading that song as well. So thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Fascinating, just utterly fascinating.